Good afternoon, YouTube. It's Tony the Lakeland Biker, and I'm riding a BMW R1200GS. Was supposed to be a GSA, but unfortunately the tester of the GSA had a little faux pas and bent it, so they've lent me the GS instead. It makes no real difference since the chassis on them both is the same, but this is 25 kilos lighter. So what do I think of it? Well, it's a smashing bike. I've had it all morning. They were good enough to lend me this whilst mine was in for repair and I needed to get to work. And they were kind enough to lend me one for the day, so I'm just taking it back at the moment. It's not my cup of tea, I'll be perfectly honest with you. I'm a little bit too short to feel comfortable on a GS. I'm only 5'7½", and really you need to be about 5'9" to be comfortable on one of these. That's not to say I don't feel perfectly at home riding it, it's just a bit of a stretch to get my feet on the deck. It's the same 1170cc liquid cooled 8-valve twin engine that you find in the R12R and RS and RT, which is a fantastic engine. Gearbox is lovely, absolutely beautiful. Unlike the other two 2015s I've tried, this one's properly run in. So the gear change in it is absolutely beautiful. It's nice and slick, it's incredibly smooth. That was fourth gear, just whack the throttle open, bump, we're doing 90 miles an hour. Yes, it might be in this sit up and beg adventure touring package, but it's still a very, very powerful piece of kit. And it goes like snot off a stick. It's not my cup of tea, I'll be perfectly honest with you. I'm not a great fan of the adventure tourers to begin with. I did get a shot on a workmate's KTM yesterday. He's got the 1200cc KTM Adventure, and in comparison to that, this thing is so sophisticated and a hell of a lot more comfortable. Where the KTM was, it felt a little bit like a garage kit. You know, for a, it's only 12-month old, so it wasn't an old one. But little things like, you could see bits of exposed wiring. The gearbox was a lot more clunky than this. And it was nothing like as stable or as comfortable as this feels. You know, this is... straight bang, no messing around. The KTM is probably actually slightly better as an off-road machine, but since people who buy this sort of bike don't go off-road on them, or very few people do, apologies to Mark in Edinburgh, who I do know does go off-road on his GS, but by and large most people who buy this sort of bike don't. My big complaint about this is it's the sort of person who's likely to buy it. I tend to think they appeal to that either, just starting, mature male, just started to ride a bike, or perhaps people who had a bike license when they were younger and then got back into biking again, and it would be a very, very easy motorcycle to get into trouble on. very, very easy motorcycle to get into trouble on because it is so bloody fast. In relation to your perception of how fast you think it's going to go, it's a quick bit of kit. Now, all these 8-valvers are, you know, none of them are sluggish, but this one, it's a little bit like an RT. It's deceptively quick. You don't expect it to be quite as sort of pokey as it is. Now, I know these things have got a bad press because of what I call the Ewan McGregor effect, and I do see a lot of them where I live at home, you know, which is sort of a 6 or 7 year old GS, and it's got sort of 3,500 miles on the clock. Personally, I couldn't have a bike like that. Now, if I was having a bike which was only going to be doing 1,000 miles a year on, it wouldn't be something which is designed for doing 1,000 miles a week. You know, if I was only doing 1,000 miles a year on it, I'd have something nice and classic, you know, like an old Bonneville or something like that. But by this thing, it's, you know, like the RS, it'd be very easy to lose your driving licence on. Because you have very little perception of how fast you're going. You know, you're in this little still air bubble. So I'm not impressed with the screen, I have to say. You know, I'm only 5'7" and a bit, and I'm getting quite a lot of wind battering and buffeting off it. I can see why I see quite a few people on them with the little flips on them, like I've got on my R, the little screen extenders. It's very easy to go fast on them. Good engine braking. You know, an engine braking combined with a little bit of front brake, and it really does slow you up. Very, very nice motorcycle. I'm enjoying this. I'm not enjoying it enough to make me want to buy one, but I am enjoying it. It's, you know, it's a fun bike to ride. Still think the RS is the better bike though. The only thing this has, which the RS doesn't, is it's got the telelever, and I do prefer the telelever front end. And once again we're approaching the jewel of the Northwest, which is Southport. This lot has changed so much since I was a kid though. This used to be the old outdoor baths, I think. So the BMW GS, what do I think of it? Nice bike. Give it 8 out of 10. Engine's beautiful, engine's great. Ride comfort, great. Sense of rider security, very good. And I think if I was a touch taller, I'd feel a lot more comfortable on it. That's not to say that I don't feel comfortable, because I do. But being a short arse, whenever I come to a set of lights, I'm always having to sort of check what side the camber of the road is, so I know what foot to put down. Not so much a problem here in town, but certainly when I was out on Blackpool and Southport Moss, it was definitely noticeable. And if you're after an adventure tourer, you really can't beat these GS's. It's a more refined bike than the KTM. It's more comfortable than the KTM, but the KTM does have a little bit more sense of drama and theatre about it, and perhaps even a little more character because of its imperfections. The KTM is not a perfect bike by any stretch of the imagination. This thing is pretty near close to it, and because it's that close to it, it does make it a little bit, I hate to say dreary because it's not dreary, but smashing bike, but it just doesn't seem to have the sense of magic. Doesn't excite that 7-year-old boy inside me in quite the same way the RS did. It doesn't have the same giggle factor. If anything, it's just a little bit too good for its own good, if you can follow that. It's a brilliant bike, and if someone gave me one tomorrow and sort of said, right, you're riding that for the next 12 months, I wouldn't object in the slightest. I'd take the keys and say thank you very, very much. But would I go out and spend my own beer notes on it? Nah. I'd have its RS, I'd have the RS, but that's not to say that this isn't a great bike, because it is a great bike. But for me, it's just a little bit too good. It's just a little bit too antiseptically clinical. Maybe even over refined. Even when I was giving it a bit of a spanking coming across the moss, it didn't sort of give me that fizzy sensation in the bottom of my stomach. Yeah, like I say, it just doesn't quite give that in a 7-year-old quite the same thrill I got from riding the RS. Although this thing is, you know, equally as impressive as a motorcycle, and I would not, you know, I wouldn't object to riding one daily in the slightest. So there we go, BMW RS Tony test. Hope you like that, Mark. See you folks in the future. Ride safe and be good. Toodaloo.